Welcome to RECO12. My name is Justin, and I am a child of an all-powerful and all-loving God and a recovering addict, and am blessed to be the host of this meeting. RECO12 is an organization with the mission of learning and sharing the similarities of addictions of all kinds, and gaining and sharing tools and hope from others who are walking a similar path. We come together from all places, faiths, and backgrounds to gain tools and hope from others who are walking on this path. Speakers from our past meetings have represented so many fellowships, addictions, and afflictions, and we look forward to continuing to add to the diversity of speakers and backgrounds. Today's speaker for the 200th meeting, what a cool hurdle that is to cross, 200 meetings, is Michael S. And he is a repeat speaker. He has spoken to us once before on meeting number 68. His topic was emotional sobriety. Today, he will be speaking on the topic of sober dating and how it's not easy. And we'll get to his talk and the Q&A afterwards here in just a minute. But first, for a little bit of business. The RECO12 family of recovery resources continues to grow and have more resources for the addicts and the loved ones of those addicted. And we really look forward to continuing to expand on that. I invite you to go listen to any of those. I'll put some of those in the chat as we move along. We'll get that to going here in a few minutes. And Michael's coming in right now. Excited to have you here. But on that note, with all of the other RECO12 resources that we have, RECO12 is a self-supporting service, and we appreciate your help in keeping us working our 12th step in this manner. Thank you to all who have donated and continue to donate. This week, a special thanks goes out to all those who have donated. Alan and Anna, who joined with the spearheads in donations. Those really help in our mission and to help us share this message with others. If you would like to join the ranks and become a spearhead and support RECO12 in our mission, please consider going to www.reco12.com/support and making either a one-time donation or becoming a monthly spearhead donor. We look forward in each meeting to receiving from the light reflected from our speakers. That light inspires hope, meaning, worth, and growth in us, the listening audience. I'm glad Michael's here. Good to have you here, Michael. I'm going to get you introduced and then get you started here in just a minute. So here's a little bit about Michael S. Michael has been in a variety of 12-step fellowships over the last 10 years. His primary fellowship is AA, even though he is not an alcoholic, and he'll explain that here in a little bit. Currently, he is most active in SLA and CODA. Michael's favorite topic to speak on is emotional sobriety, which he did previously, as I mentioned, in meeting number 68 with RECO12 about a year and a half, 2 years ago. We're excited to hear about his topic today, which is sober dating. He has been practicing as a licensed psychotherapist and life coach for the past 20 years, and he and his family live in the southwestern suburbs of Chicago. Michael, jump in here and take it away. I'm excited to hear from you and grateful to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, Justin. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you sound great.
All right. Well, one of the great things about recovery is I've learned to go with the flow. And it used to really mess me up. Justin and I have been going back and forth, and I hope I don't out you here, Justin, but we messed up our times. Like, I'm in Chicago, right? We said it 11 o'clock Central Time. And he meant, oh, you'll be in there in 2 minutes. And he goes, I meant Eastern. So no problem. I'm making it happen. I'm here. And one of the things I like doing to prepare for these is write out something and what I want to talk about, and then kind of throw it away. Somebody told me about this in doing a speech and preparing, and I'll refer to my notes once in a while, but I think it's best when people speak, when I hear people speak over the years, it's the more off the cuff, the more they just riff, and the more they just speak authentically from the heart. I think it works better. Let me say just a little about myself. I've been in recovery for 10 years, a little over 10 years. And like Justin said, I started in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not alcoholic. I was struggling big time with depression and anxiety. I was about to go through a divorce, and I did therapy, did self-help, everything like everybody else has done. And I said, if I can't find some help in this 12 steps, never heard of the 12 steps. I've been a psychotherapist for 23 years and still never heard of the 12 steps, and really how they work. And so I came to this group locally here in a suburb of Chicago, and I said, "Listen, I'm a struggle with depression. I'm not an alcoholic. Can I sit here?" And they looked at me, never saw anybody like me before. They said, "Sure," and got a sponsor, worked the program wherever it said alcohol. I replaced the word depression. But I thought, and I've said this before, and when I speak in the 12 steps, which I think is really amazing, is that the only time the word alcohol is used in the 12 steps is in the first step, that you're powerless over alcohol. I was powerless over depression. My mental health and my life was unmanageable. You won't see the word alcohol mentioned at all throughout the 12 steps. I think uh, I've talked about some controversial topics here, Justin. I realized that. So I was here, I was writing some notes here. I was here on September 24th, 2021, episode number 68 on emotional sobriety. And I was back on episode 110, Can Addiction Be Cured? And at that time, I was going through something called transmagnetic therapy, TMS, TMT, TMS. And that was on July 15th, 2022. And I think it's amazing. I think today's the 200th episode. Is that correct? Right? Um, and just what an honor to be back here and to look at where I've been. One of the things I often say today is my worst day today was my best day years ago. And to think about I'm turning 50 at the end of January, my 40s were brutal, and got divorced around 41. And just that's when I started my recovery journey around then. And recovery is not easy. I was looking together as I was preparing today that I think I've been to well over 1,000 different 12-step meetings. I go to any fellowship. It doesn't matter what fellowship, OA, GA, DA, SLAA. For me, it's the same message. It's sharing experience, strength, and hope, connecting with people who could relate to me. And yeah, it's a lot of meetings. Sometimes I went to meetings every day, sometimes two meetings every day, three meetings every day. It was the only place I felt sane, the only place I felt healthy. And at that time, kept me alive. Suicidal thoughts were definitely on my mind. Didn't want to, but what's the analogy? I was too scared to die, right? But didn't want to live. Living sucked day by day, crying every day. I've sponsored people. I've worked the steps. I think I've worked the step 5, 6, maybe 7 times with different sponsors and different fellowships, all a little different. I've sponsored, I was looking at this, I probably have attempted to sponsor over 50 people. And I think I've only taken less than 10 actually through the 12 steps. Out of those 10, I think maybe 5 or less actually went out to sponsor people, which isn't good numbers at all. I think 12 steps is our most successful model out there to work with addiction, and the reality is very few people come to 12 steps. Um, I only sponsor men, and there's not a lot of men in the fellowships. Sex and Love Addictions Anonymous. I do two-way prayer every morning. I'll talk a little about that a little later. Today, I think there's like 51 people on the call. I think there's 3 or 4 men, and I go every day, and that's pretty consistent. So I start a men's two-way prayer. It's every day, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. I know Justin will put it in the notes here, and we only get 4 to 6 men there. It's been going on for 2.5 years, and it's a great meeting, and I think it's needed. So my specialty as a psychotherapist is working with teenage boys and men. I should get into our topic here, I know, but I realized that I gave you the topic. I'm not going to talk that much about sober dating. I don't have that much to say about it. I'm in a relationship now with a woman. Her name's Julie. It's a couple weeks. It'll be 7 months. It's a very healthy relationship, the healthiest relationship I ever been with. And when I think about the number of women I've chatted with, talked to, went on first dates or second dates, 3-month relationship. My longest relationship was 2 years in the last, 7 or 8 years. I have a lot of shame around it. And when I hear the word shame, I have 2 analogies. I have a lot of analogies, and maybe I'll share some later. But shame is self-hate and mental exhaustion, just totally useless. Self-hate and mental exhaustion. And then the one I think more common we heard is should have already mastered everything. So I think I have a little less shame when I think of I was married for 12, 13 years. My kids were 9 and 6 when I got divorced. And so I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And how am I should have already mastered everything. And I just went out there and I tried a variety of things, from being single because I couldn't imagine dating. My first year, I was just trying to hold my shit together, right? And then I dabbled in online dating, and then I stopped online dating, and then I came back to online dating, and then I learned more about sober dating and tried that. And here's my belief, and just my personal belief. I know as I shared things here on RECO12 over the years, I've got phone calls, I got texts. It's been people haven't liked necessarily message, but my message, they don't agree. But it's okay. I mean, before recovery, if somebody disagreed with me, it was brutal. Also a codependent. I had to move into my own house and my own place and set it up. And Justin, if you came over to my house and you didn't like my couch, I would get a new couch. Like, that's how bad it was. You didn't like the color of my walls. Now it's like I don't really care, right? So now I'm what I've learned in 12 steps is if I just share my experience strength at home, people can't get angry at me. It's just my experience. And it might not be other people's experience. Sober dating might have worked really well for other people. It has not worked for me. It just hasn't. Uh, the word sober, here's how I use this analogy or this kind of comparison. Have you ever heard of a sober drunk or a sober alcoholic or a sober drinker? Like, those two words don't go together at all. It's abstinence. There's no moderation. Now, I remember talking to you, Justin, back when we talked about, is there treatment or can depression or addiction, sorry, be cured? And we were talking about the word moderation. I don't know if you remember that. And I thought we could do it as addicts. There's some way we got to do moderation, especially for the most difficult programs. I think are SLAA, Sex and Love Addictions Anonymous, and OA, Overeaters Anonymous. We can't do abstinence. We got to learn moderation. We got to learn sufficiency. We've got to learn to manage and have boundaries. Now, no alcohol could do that. Tell an alcoholic to do that. Go in a bar and just drink a drink and do it responsibly. So, as a sex and love addict, I said, well, we got to be able to figure a way to do this. One of the things I did, Justin, why do I keep going to Jordan? I don't know why. Justin, is I looked through all your episodes, 199 episodes last night, and I realized there was no episodes on sober dating. There's no episodes on dating. There's a couple on like using programs to enhance your relationship if you're married or in a relationship. But I don't know. I think most people. I think if I went up to anybody or talked to anybody who entered sex and love addiction or codependence anonymous and said, "Are you interested in trying to get healthier so you could be in a romantic relationship one day?" I think close to 100% would say yes, right? But we don't talk about it, at least not on RECO12, and nothing against RECO12. But I wanted to, when I was starting to get better, I was looking for people who had healthy relationships, and I didn't find them. Now, what I did is when I got into a relationship, I just stopped going to meetings. I don't need a relation. I don't need these meetings. If I have a woman in my life, why would I do that? And when I started dating Julie for the first month, I didn't come to meetings. And I realized that's not right. There's a woman named Shirley. I don't even know Shirley's last name, but Shirley A. And I think I've shared this on both RECO12 episodes that I was in a 12-step program that most people have never heard of called Misery Addicts Anonymous, MAA, or Self-Sabotage Anonymous. It was came from a book called When Misery is Company by Anne Catherine. And I was part of that fellowship for a couple of years. And I felt like, you know what? I've got all I can get out of this fellowship. It's time to leave. Called Shirley up. I said, Shirley, thanks. She was kind of the founder. I don't know. She was very active. I said, Shirley, thanks for all this. It's not serving anymore. I'm going to move on. And I thought for sure she'd say, Michael, thanks for your contribution. You're a treasure. You spoke. You had helped us grow the fellowship. And she just said, Michael, shame on you. And she got upset with me. Actually yelled at me. And she goes, Michael, how selfish can you be? Do you realize how many people listened to your story, listened to you, were there for you, sponsored you, took calls from you? And now when you can't get anything, you just leave? How about staying around and help the addict who's still suffering? How about stay around and see what you could give versus what you could get? And that just stunned me. And since then, that's always stayed with me. And for me, I'm a selfish person. In the big book, it says selfish to the extreme. I've improved, Justin, here that I don't think I'm selfish to the extreme anymore. I just think I'm selfish, which is a mass improvement for an addict like me. And I try to remember that when I don't want to go to meetings, or I don't need this meeting, or I'm not going to get anything. And I say, somewhere God does say to me, Michael, get on that meeting. And I've been to a lot of meetings over the last 6 months since I've been with Julie. And always, of course, when we sponsor, when we give, I always get so much back in return. And, I have to be there and show up for people who want to be in relationship to give them some hope that we actually could do this, that there's a way to do this. And the reason sober dating, I don't know why it didn't work for me, but it just didn't. And maybe it did. I thought about it in different ways that I don't think I'd ever been with Julie if I didn't go through all that and use women to get my need met, to get that God hole. I just use them for validation. I use them for physical affection, intimacy, and couldn't get any more from them, I just moved on to the next woman, and I knew what I was doing. And I said, the next woman, I'm going to do sober dating. I'm going to have boundaries. I'm going to take my time. I'm not going to sleep with them so quick, whatever it was. And I couldn't do it. And I was praying and meditating. Sometimes it was self-will. I'm like, God, please help me do this differently. And each time it felt like I was doing it differently, kind of like an alcoholic going to the bar and say, nope, not beer. I'm going with whiskey today. Or maybe I'll just do one drink every 3 hours. I don't know what it is, but eventually it fails. And that's been my experience. So I probably should say after 9 years or 8 years, I finally decided I'm going to stay single for a while. I thought of a brilliant method to meet somebody. And it would have been nice if I thought about this a long time ago. It's not like revolutionary, but I'm Jewish and I wanted to date a Jewish woman. So I decided I'm going to reach out to all my Jewish female friends who are married and say, do you know any Jewish single women? Now, the funny thing is, the person who called me was the lady who is Jewish, and her name's Leah, and she was my divorce attorney. She helped me get divorced, and now she introduced me to this new woman, and I thought that was funny. That's really all I have. Let me see my notes here. All I have on sober dating, but I do want to talk about a little what's going on in the world today. I don't want to go into tons of politics, but I do want to say how 12 steps has helped me tremendously. To me, the most powerful step for me when I think of it is step 4. And it's the area that I'm really struggling with right now. Step 4 has me look at my resentments, my fears, and the harms I've done to others. Most men I sponsor, they can't get through this step. Well, what do you mean? It was my ex-wife. It was my boss. It was Donald Trump. It was Joe Biden. And what's going on in the world today with anti-Semitism, with things in Gaza and Israel and all over the world, I think we're lacking step 4. And step 4 is to take a look at how am I at fault? Where am I to blame? And I speak this all the time. I've talked to my rabbi about this, and she did a sermon at Shabbat on Friday about this. And I just think most people can't hear it. Something that I heard being a Jew is there's certain people, certain, say, Palestinians or certain people in Hamas or whatever it is, that don't waste your time sharing your message because they can't hear it. They're so stuck in their way, they can't hear it. Again, I don't want this to be political, but I remember Oprah said something really powerful. Obviously, Oprah doesn't like Donald Trump, and she said, Oprah, if you spoke to Donald Trump, what would you say to him? And she was really simple. If you had 10 minutes, an hour with her, what would you say? And she said, very simple. I would say nothing. I don't speak to people who don't listen. And that was her opinion. Again, I don't want to get political here. And so I do believe there's a small group of people who are open to looking at themselves. It's very interesting in the world for me right now. And again, I don't want this to go into politics here. but I have a 17-year-old daughter and a 15-year-old son. Again, we're Jewish, and they're pro-Palestinian, right? Now, pro-Palestinian is a loaded word, but they're for the Palestinian people. That is horrendous that we're going in and we're killing thousands and thousands of people. And they said to me, Dad, I thought our core value was humanitarian, that every life is equal. And I've learned a lot from my children. Um, I think God speaks through people. So when people in our program struggle with, I can't find a connection to God, which is vital in the 12 steps. If I don't have a spiritual awakening, guess what? This program doesn't work. Bottom line. Doesn't matter how many you work the steps, doesn't matter if you go to meetings, all that. If you don't have a spiritual awakening, if you don't have some contact with God, you're going to relapse or you're going to stay drunk or whatever it is. So that's how I kind of worked the program at the beginning. I didn't believe in God, couldn't see how God, I did believe in God, but I didn't see how God was going to help with my depression. So I just trusted people and I faked it till I made it. They just did what they told me to do because I was desperate. Of all as a psychotherapist for the last 23 years, for the last 10 years since I've been in recovery, I've shared the 12 steps with probably hundreds of clients, hundreds who struggle with addictions, depression, other things. And I suggested to them to go to a meeting. Out of those hundreds of people that I've shared it with them, I would say less than 5 actually went to a meeting. And out of those 5, maybe 1 or 2 actually worked the steps. And out of those people, maybe 1, I think of one client right now who's been sober for 7 years and he's sponsoring people. That's pretty piss poor numbers. I get depressed about that sometimes and yet feel so powerless that um, I'll use this statement that I hear in the rooms about let's try to raise the ceiling. You're going to raise the floor or bottom. I don't know exactly how it goes. That if I share my experience and strength with Joe, who's struggling right now, that maybe if I share my experience, strength, and hope, that he won't have to hit his rock bottom, that he won't have to suffer so much. I wish that worked. I really do. I've just never seen it work. Never. And I've never seen anybody walk into a room of the thousands of meetings I've went to. Never seen somebody walk in a room and say, I'm just checking this out. Kind of suffering a little. Maybe this program will hurt. No, the only people I've met who ever walked in a room were rock bottom, wife left them, lost their job, possibly are going to jail. Like, that's amazing. And so sometimes I feel really powerless. And in today's what's going on in the world today, I think what I talk to people in my synagogue, Jewish people, non-Jewish people, the feeling of powerless. And I feel like I'm been blessed by being in this program. Doesn't matter if it's SLA or what other 12-step program is. That's the core of all these programs. First step, I'm powerless over, and life is unmanageable. And the only way I'm going to bring some sanity is I got to find some connection with something bigger than me. And the most people I know aren't in 12 steps, but they know the feeling of powerlessness, whether it's my clients, friends, family, and they're suffering, really suffering. But at least I've been in a program for the last 10 years to give me a lot of tools to deal with powerlessness, whether it's prayer or meditation or go to meetings or, there's 15 or 20 other, tools that I have in my spiritual toolbox. How much time do I have more? I want to finish up with a couple more things.
You got about 4 or 5 minutes more. Perfect. If you would like to do that.
Perfect. So about 6 years ago, maybe a little longer, when I got divorced, I started a podcast. It's called Emotional Sobriety, My Blueprint, Struggle Towards Emotional Sobriety. It has 350 plus episodes, all about Michael all the time. So you get to see how selfish I am and you learn everything about me. And I stopped doing it. I'm done. At least I said this is my last. It was 351 and I haven't done it for months. And I think it's complete. But I also have said that before in episode 100 and episode 220, and I picked it back up. And but there's something I created called the Emotional Sobriety Gym, the ESG, and I think we need a gym like that. We don't need any more physical gyms to get your body stronger. I go to Orange Theory, so I do take care of my body. But when it comes to emotions and spirituality, we need an emotional sobriety gym where you're dealing with powerless. and you're dealing with addiction, you're dealing with these feelings, and you walk in, and depending where what you're feeling, you could either go to the meditation room or to the journaling room or the 12-step room, or maybe you go to a little workshop over here, or maybe you learn how to pray and meditate. I don't know what it is, but um, I think it's always interesting, and maybe I'll wrap up with this. As a psychotherapist, people work with me, and they, at a certain point, they stop working with me, and they said, "I think I've had enough." And I said, "What do you mean you had enough? Like, do you ever go to the gym and say, you know what? I think I'm strong enough. I think I got that cardio done. I'm going to stop." Or if do you ever say, you know what? I've really been eating healthy lately, and I think I'm going to stop. I'm just going to eat crap. And I think there's something that we need to change around addiction, mental health, this field. Addiction, often we say, well, I have to go to this the rest of my life. Got to be involved the rest of my life. I have to go to 12-step meetings the rest of my life. Well, yeah, if you want to stay healthy, and we never say, I got to eat healthy the rest of my life. I have to go to the gym the rest of my life. And I think somehow if we have that switch, uh, hopefully I could see that in my lifetime. So sober dating is our topic. We probably talked about 4 minutes about that. Somehow it's all related. So I think that's all I got. I think that's a good place to end.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Michael. And I'm gonna start us on the Q&A section, going back to the topic on choice. But thank you so much for sharing your experience, strength, and hope on each of these things that you went into. And we'll probably touch on several of them as we go through the Q&A here. But first of all, I want you to, would you be willing to or able to define what is sober dating? What does that look like? What is there a black and white definition of sober dating? What is it?
Yeah, I don't think there's a black and white, but there is programs, and I've went to little workshops, and I've heard people from 12-step programs talk about it. And sober dating to me is boundaries, is be able to, for me, pause, slow down, and hear. It's almost like a roadmap. So, like, here's what you would do on the first date. Here's what you might not hold hands until this time. You don't want to kiss till have this time. And it's trying to have some boundaries, some regimen, some structure. Basically, for me, it's to slow things down. And I think I've done it pretty well with Julie. I don't, and there's parts of it that does work, but then my self will and something else. I'm an addict, takes over. So people call, bottom line behaviors. People talk about things of, I can't do X, Y, Z, or I got to postpone doing X, Y, Z. I like the idea of it. I really do. Just like I like the idea of, I'm not an alcoholic, but for an alcoholic, I like the idea. What if you could do that for drinking? Like, slow down, put some parameters on it. Exactly what I'm saying for sober dating. We could do that for drinking. We could do that for gambling. We could do that for other addictions. Obviously, when I say that for other addictions, people are like, you can't. You're crazy. It doesn't work. And so to try to do that as a, say, sex and love addict or a codependent, extremely difficult. Again, not impossible. Just for me, not too successful, if that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you for that. And there are some S fellowships that have very strict definitions of sobriety, like SA, no sex with self or with anyone other than the spouse you're married to, and progressive victory over lust. How do those types of definitions maybe tie into what we're talking about here with sober dating? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I know several people, and we all know several people at SLAA in our fellowship. I'm a spiritual gangsters person, just like a lot of people who show up here. So we have a lot of fellows from SA or other sex addiction programs. And the reason most people leave there is too rigid, and it wasn't working, and they couldn't. I have a good friend of mine who was part of a program like that, and he just had to leave. He just felt like I was total failure. I just couldn't. What's wrong with me? And I just had shame all the time. So there is something about abstinence that I just don't think does work when it comes to human relationships, when it comes to eating. That and we've seen, whether it's a priest or a minister or a rabbi or people, a clergy who takes the abstinence vow, that hasn't worked too well. I think overall, I see the point of it, and I understand religiously, but this abstinence, we need human relationships. I need connection, and but I don't know how to do it in a healthy way. Now that's a problem. I wasn't born this way. None of us were born this way. We were, it was our environment, it was our parents, our friends, our teachers, and then I got this disease, and it's a hard one to kick.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I can see that, as well, I as a sex addict myself, as an overeater myself, a food addict, these things are topics that are near and dear to me. And I'm a member of a S fellowship that has a very strict definition of sexual sobriety. And gratefully, I'm sober one day at a time over 8.5 years in that fellowship, which is a miracle, absolute miracle. And with my food addiction, I'm grateful that my sponsor helped me identify the foods that are alcoholic to me, that are toxic to me. And for example, potato chips, French fries, popcorn, salty, crunchy things are what kill me. And I've been able to maintain abstinence, 100% abstinence from those things for almost 2 years now. And miracles are happening in that process. Now, sometimes is it too much? It can feel that way. And I want to give grace to that. But I also want to share that, at least for me, these definitions of abstinence have worked after decades of not working as I've applied the principles. And I'm not counteracting what you're saying. I'm just sharing my own
No,
experience, strength, and hope with that. Yeah.
yeah, I talked to a lady on my 2A prayer this morning, and she said to me, "I think Overeaters Anonymous is something I really need, but I'm not an overeater." And I wish they somehow changed that. She said, I compulsively eat. I eat to numb my feelings, but I'm not obese. I don't eat too much. I don't sit with a gallon of ice cream. But as you know, right, most people, I've met so many people at OA who are in great shape. I mean, not heavy, don't overeat. They just eat to numb their feelings because they can't deal with feelings. So I don't know, maybe that one day, or maybe there is another program out there that for food, an anonymous program that is out there. I just don't know of it.
Yeah, there are lots of food programs out there, and lots of different episodes or different definitions of that too. So yeah, keep looking. But all right, I've got a few questions that have come in from our live audience, and I'll get to those right here. Michael, first one comes from Aura. Aura says, "Thanks for the share." This is from Aura in Israel. What is the main difference between your current relationship and your past relationships, and what has changed for you?
Yes, I knew that question was coming, and I did not prepare for it, but I knew it was coming. Well, I guess I have uh, used the pause button, slowed it down. I've shared with Julie upfront of who I am. I didn't plan on it, but I did. And here's what I need to do to have a healthy relationship. And I shared with her. She didn't know a lot about 12 steps. She didn't know about Sex and Love Addiction Anonymous, and she respected those. I think there's women who didn't respect those, who, oh, come on, just have fun, and got in trouble with that. So I have women that um, I should have stopped seeing immediately. Those in relationships that should have stopped months, if not years earlier. So I think for me, I have to be upfront with the person I'm with, right? And they don't have to be in a 12-step fellowship, but they have to understand it. They have to know it's a big part of my life. They have to know it comes before anything, even before them. Because if I'm not sober, right, for my addiction, this relationship's not going to work. So telling the truth up front, I think, is the biggest thing. I think I finally got really, really clear that I wanted to be with a Jewish woman, somebody who had children my age, somebody who didn't smoke. I got really, really clear. And I would bend my rules, though. I mean, I was with women that it's like, that's right if you live an hour and a half away. No, it wasn't. It's okay if you're not Jewish. No, it wasn't for me, right? And I just bent my rules and convince myself that this is different. I think that's the worst part of it for me. This is different. This seems like a healthy relationship. And then I hit a certain point of like, oh, just the same woman with a different name over and over and over again. And not until I saw that was I able to, I think, shift a little. So the
Yeah,
little answer there.
Thank you for that. I've heard people say, "Yeah, my picker's broken. I always choose the same type of woman, the same type of man. It happens all the time, no matter how different I try it to make it be. But until I'm able to look at myself honestly and answer those questions, I mean, you talked about step 4 being a major issue in life. Until I'm able to identify these character defects that are just destroying my life, I'm going to keep attracting the same the same type of people to me, and I think that's vital to understand. Thanks for sharing that, Michael. All right. Next question from our live audience. This is from Tony. Tony says, as most people would say in the rooms, the number one key to having success in all recovery is to have a spiritual connection with a higher power. Do you agree with this? Why or why not?
Yep, 100% agree with this. Um, I think I'm even more direct with that without a connection, I think I said when I was speaking, this program fails. I've been a psychotherapist for years, cognitive behavioral therapist, psychodynamic, whatever. I've been in therapy for decades. I've done everything, right? And the main difference of these 12 steps, really the only difference, I've seen it all, like some type of inventory. I've seen, taking responsibility, apologizing, helping other people. Um, I didn't see the powerless part. I never learned that part of it. But this part of steps 2 and 3, that was not taught. I went to one of the most prestigious graduate schools, University of Chicago, to get my master's degree in social work. Never heard about spiritual. We don't really. I don't talk about that type of God and spirituality and spiritual awakening in a therapy session. No therapist has ever talked to me about that. And so I think it says in the big book, and it says in a lot of places. And I know we don't like talking about God in the program because it scares people. Like, we have to talk about God. We have to talk about a higher power because meeting makers don't make it. You could work the steps, you could, do everything. But if you don't have a higher power connection, whatever that is for you, and to me, it's God help me. And I don't understand. I'm an intellectual guy. I wish I could. Can't get my arms around it. My daughter struggles with connection with God, and she's, Dad, I just don't know if I believe in God. She goes, give me some proof it's out there. I'm like, I can't. And I said, well, give me some proof that it's not out there. I can't. And so I just think life's more enjoyable when I just make a choice that it's out there. And I think, yes, people say if we talk about it too much, we scare people away, right? But the bottom line is, if you don't find a connection, I've never seen this program work. And I think there's been some RECO12, a lot of RECO12 talk about what is a spiritual awakening, what is a spiritual experience, because for years, people would talk about this and give me some examples. And I have a lot of examples. And I think we need to give examples to say, this happened. I don't understand how this happened. It makes no intellectual sense. So, and then something transformed in my life. It sounds woo woo. It really does to me. It sounds like, come on. And, but I think if we could share more experience of how God has shown up in our life, I think people will be able to connect a little more, and people might say, "Oh, so yeah, that's happened in my life." I'll say a funny story with my daughter and I, and really, really quick. We were driving home from somewhere, and we are having a God conversation. And I said, "Where should we go eat?" And we were going, "I don't know. I don't really care." And she goes, "I think we should go to a restaurant called Grace." Out of the blue, and we haven't been there for months and months and months. And I'm like, Ella, that's a spiritual experience. She goes, Dad, calm, like just like a teenager, Dad. Like, no, it's not. It just came to me, and it happened to be named Grace, and we haven't went there in a long time. I'm like, but where did that come from? She goes, I don't know, Dad. So, it's just, I guess, a different perspective, right?
Thank you, Michael. I love that, and identifying little things as well. Yeah, can you consider that being some sort of God shot, something where a higher power is saying, "Hey, have you thought about this?" And that's something that's really important for me to do, is try and see my higher power in the small moments of my life, and not just try and say, "Oh, that's just a coincidence," or "That's just you know some strange thing that happened, but just happened to work out. It's
Yeah, I
important for
never
me
had a
to,
big thing. I
yeah.
don't know about you. I've never had the, things they talk about Bill Wilson, he did, or some people do. It's like something like a light bulb moment or a, huge moment. I've never had those. I just have
Hmm.
thousands and thousands and thousands of little tiny, tiny things. Like, I was playing golf over the summer and I was in the rough and I was trying to find my golf ball and a branch hit me right above my eye. And it feels like a millimeter. It went right in my eye and it would have caused a lot of damage. Is that God? I don't know, but I know I said, thank God. And things like that happen to me all the time. I didn't look at that as a God experience. I just look at that as luck or random. And I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, and I've heard people talk about, you know what, if you have a hard time with the concept of an all-powerful creator in the universe that's out there doing these things, let the principles of gratitude, of love, of honesty, of whatever be your higher power. And like you said, be grateful for the time when the stick hits you above the eye rather than in the eye, and share gratitude for whatever power that is that has made that happen. And when the stick goes in my eye, what do I do then? Well, I don't know. Hopefully we'll cross that bridge when we get there and do it with some sort of gratitude and trying to see a bigger picture. Um, next question that comes in, I'm gonna butcher this name, I think, and I apologize. This is from Abla, and Abla says, "As a woman, would you advise that I am as upfront with potential partners about taking my time and the steps? Wouldn't it lead men to pretend to be what they are not?"
Yeah, here's it answers the question, but also my philosophy of life. Um, I'll answer it in a couple ways and get to the question. So I was raised in a family that you don't share your true feelings and emotions. You definitely don't air your dirty laundry. You don't share. I mean, most in my family, I saw anger and joy. Every other more feeling is just like, I didn't learn that. And so, I went to the extreme. It was kind of F you parents, F you everybody. I'm gonna go to the extreme. I share everything. And I just like anything that comes to my mind, I just spoke. And now I realize that I need to have some boundaries around that, right? But here's my answer to that question is if you're with the right person, you could share anything. And if that person runs, it's probably not the right person. And as a codependent, I'm a people pleaser, right? I just want to try it. What's that analogy? Happy wife, happy life. Oh, I so disagree with that. Happy wife, happy wife. That's what it is. Man's miserable, or it could be vice versa, right? Try to make your husband happy and he's thrilled and you're miserable. So I am one of the skill that God gave me, the talent God gave me was speaking my truth and being vulnerable. That's what people always tell me. Michael, thanks for being so vulnerable. Thanks for being so honest. That was a horrible skill, horrible at 10 years old. Not good, right? And so I stuffed it until I realized that's what makes me a good therapist. That's what makes me a good dad and connects with my kids, a good friend. That it's a breath of fresh air when somebody speaks the truth and it gives other people permission to feel the way they were. But it took me 4 decades, if not longer, to realize it's a valuable skill. So, yeah, the answer to the question is tell your truth, be honest. I say right from the get go. Um, and, you know, but especially with me, with Julie, it did kind of, whoa, you're a sex addict, a love addict. Like, what is that? And I think anybody who didn't know that, or it was, and then I had to explain, what a sex addict meant to me. It didn't mean like I want to have sex all the time. It mean I liked the pursuit that gave me a high. The sex itself wasn't even that exciting, or the intimacy wasn't, right? So I did have to explain, and she decided to stay with me. But she could have easily say, "No, what?" And I've had women. It's been horrible. I've had women that I had a great connection with, right? And then they found out about me and they're like, "Ugh, that's too much baggage. I don't want to deal with that." And I'm like, "Really?" But I'm working on it. It's not like there's one thing to say I'm this addict that I'm not working on, but I'm doing the best to do. I can recover. Here's what I do. And certain women just say, "No, that's not for me." Okay, well, I got to respect that. So Tell the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Michael. And I think your answer kind of goes into the next question that I have for you. You mentioned that you went into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous initially as a non-alcoholic, as someone who is just losing your mind. And we talk about, hey, people that come into these rooms, they never come flying in on the wings of eagles. They come in battered and bruised and crawling on their hands and knees. That's the only way I would have walked into a room. Was I've tried everything else. I don't want to go into these rooms where I have to say I'm powerless and my life is unmanageable, because I don't want to say that. Well, I have to prove it to myself over and over again. So anyways, I want to talk a little bit about alcoholism, the ISM of that. And, in your previous answer, you talked about, hey, when I shared with some people, they said, no, that's just too much for me. And other people are like, okay, well, let's explore this and see where this goes. How does the ism of alcoholism, of any of these addiction isms, how does that pertain to maybe that willingness or the not willingness to step into the dark and take some risks? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think does that question make any sense?
Yeah, let me try to see what comes up for me around that. Um, I'll be like a politician here. I don't know how to answer the question, so I'll just kind of skirt around it and just talk about my own topic, right? And then somehow, but it's hard. For me, I'll talk about men. Men. I hate to say this, but we're weak and we're not willing to do the work. And I understand why. It makes perfect sense to me. And we could go into trauma and men, it's a sense of being weak. And so what? Uh, we all feel that. Women feel that. We all. And I used to think there needs to be more resources out there and make it easier for men to do this. I don't think so. There's plenty of resources, therapists, 12-step meetings, support groups. Um, I just think men need to push themselves and say, yeah, I don't know what to do with it. I've studied it for 20 years. That's my specialty, working with teenage boys and men, and I haven't figured it out. But I want to answer your question. Ask your question a different way around the ism part. Maybe I can
Okay.
interpret it
Yeah.
a different
So
way.
so how does the ism of alcoholism, how is it more universal in and can be applied into the lives of anybody? I mean, you talked about, hey, when I
Got it.
went in, I replaced the word alcohol with depression, or it may be with food, it may
Yeah,
be with lust, whatever it may be. How does that work
got it.
universally?
Yeah. So when I am working with my clients, every single person I treat is an addict. We're all addicts. Just what's your vice? Because the true addiction to me is I don't know how to deal with my anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, joy in a healthy way. I have no freaking clue. Nobody taught me. I always say to men all the time, name me one man you know who could express and deal with their anger in a healthy way. And nobody can answer, nobody has anybody. Name me any human that you think expresses the range of emotions in a healthy way. People say, I don't know anybody, right? We don't know how to do that. So the solution, right? We heard it a lot. The solution is food, sex, love, gambling. It's not the problem. And we spend so much time on the solution. Now, when you take the solution away, life's going to be horrendous for a while, right? So everybody is an addict. And now we have healthy addictions, that people healthier. Well, I work a lot, or I exercise a lot, or I read a lot, or I watch documentaries a lot. It's the same thing. They're all the same. So the ism, I guess, is the same, that we all have our ism. Nobody's different. I don't, unless you find somebody who could really deal with emotions in a healthy way. I don't know anybody. And so if I talk to somebody, so what do you do when you feel shame, anger, sadness, fear? And they say, well, I take a walk. Well, that's your addiction. Take a lot of freaking walks. I know that's healthy, but it's not really, because you need to deal with that emotion. Well, I don't know how to do that. I feel powerless over that. Great. That's your addiction. Right.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael, for that. Got one more question here, and then we'll go into wrapping things up. This question is, how In a relationship situation early on in the relationship, how would you share something with that person? Hopefully they're the right person without causing harm to them or self. How do you share, hey, I struggle with this addiction and I'm working on it. Let's take things slow in this dating arrangement without hurting yourself or them.
Yeah, repeat that question one more time because even though I'm a therapist, I'm a horrible listener. And I just have to admit when I don't I just wasn't paying attention. Yeah, say it one more time.
Okay. So how would you go about sharing struggles with a potential right person without doing any harm to them or to myself?
Oh, this is my favorite. This is a good question to end up with. And this is my most controversial statement as a therapist, as a person in recovery. I am not responsible for your feelings. I'll leave it with this story. A mom called me once and she said, "You're working with my son, Joey. Joey said that he's not responsible for my feelings. So you're telling me when Joey doesn't do his homework, he's not responsible for my anger. I'm upset with that." I said, "Exactly." And she was like, "Okay, let me state that question again." And maybe Joey misunderstood it. Maybe I'm like, "No, Joey did his homework, right? You have an opinion and feeling about that. He didn't make you feel that way." And this is the most controversial. I've lost clients with this. I've gained clients with this. It's just this topic of the codependency. If you ask maybe my family members or people I know, they're like, "Michael, of course I am." Now, it doesn't give you an excuse to just be a dick and be a jerk in the world, right? But that's the way we live. Kind of sum up what's going on in the world today, and kind of a good way to sum this up is that if I speak my truth, you're going to react the way you react. Now, in a relationship or with a woman, and I've said this to Julie before, because I don't want to be Julie's therapist. I'm her boyfriend to say, "Wow, I just told you something. And you're bawling, crying. You're really angry." And I used to feel like I did something wrong. Now, we could talk about childhood trauma and all this kind of where that comes from. And she's allowed to respond that way, right? She didn't do it. She's not too emotional. She didn't do anything wrong. But I just said something XYZ. It's really, really upsetting to her. And luckily, I won't date somebody who's not in therapy or has done extensive therapy or done some type extensive personal growth work. I won't, because that's a problem in a relationship. That's your fault, Michael. You made me feel that way. I didn't make you feel that way. I'll be open to see, I could say it differently. I could talk about it. And I was able to say, "Julie, that might be a good topic you could talk to your therapist about." Now, this is kind of answers another question. I've been in relationships in the past where, "No, Michael, this is about you. I'm not going to a therapist. You made me feel this way. You go to your therapist." If we get arguments about this. So to be with a woman who is open enough to say, "I'm willing to look at that," and I realized my emotional reaction was pretty extreme, considering you just said XYZ, which wasn't really that big a deal, but it brought up my fear that you might leave me or my fear of my insecurity. I'm going to talk to my therapist. I'll talk to you next week about this, and I'll let you know what I see for myself. Now, you find a woman like that or a man like that, you got to hold on to that person. That's rare. So I don't even know what the question is, but I hope I answered it.
No, thank you for addressing it that way. Yeah, I think you touched on it and did something that was very helpful. Thank you. All right, before we go into the closing readings here, do you have any final words of wisdom that you'd like to send us off with?
Yeah, I think my recommendation is somehow that more people speak about dating, healthy relationships, because I think people who come in this room want to have healthy romantic relationships. I think we all want to. Who doesn't want to fall in love, be in love, have that feeling, have a partner that you connect with? I think we all do. Now, I don't need it anymore, which is amazing. I want it. Before I needed it, right? Now life's better with that person. Um, but I think we need to talk about more in these rooms, especially SLAA. It's possible, and people who are in those relationships stick around in the rooms, come back to the rooms, share your success stories. Give. more than you get. And like I said, there's just, at least on RECO12, there's very few of those, I'll call them success stories in relationships. Um, and they're out there. And I think we need experience. We need the experience. We need the strength and the hope. That's why I like spiritual gangsters. That it's about strength and hope, and that's not true about a lot of other 12 steps and other places you go. That we just talk about the problem. I need to look at somebody to say, I want what that person has, and it's hard to find.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. Very good RECO12 weekly speaker meeting. Thank you for being here. If anybody out there in the audience has additional questions for Michael or would like to connect with him and ask him other questions, please consider sending an email to RECO12pod@gmail.com. I will get you connected with him. If you have other questions, consider joining our WhatsApp community by sending an email to that same email address, and I'll get you hooked up in our WhatsApp community. Next week, we're going to be doing things once again a little bit differently. This week we recorded on Tuesday rather than Friday because, well, I'm going to be out of town and unavailable. Next week, it's the same thing. The Friday after American Thanksgiving, I will not be able to do this. We've got a special recording happening by one of our spearheads, one of the people who really works closely in the background of RECO12 will be interviewing another addict on the topic of gratitude. And we'll post that in podcast format on Friday after Thanksgiving. This one will be posted this Friday. Thank you for those who are here live, but this recording will be made available this Friday at our regular time. But tonight we've got, well, it's tomorrow morning, I guess, at 9 o'clock a.m. UK time, GMT. Karen A leads the Afro-Euro RECO12 meeting with Nicola B as the speaker, and her topic will be happy, joyous, and free in a 12-step program. And excited to have those. We've got other RECO12 projects coming down the pike every week. Now, Michael, do you have a favorite recovery prayer that you'd like to launch us off with, or what are your thoughts on that right now?
Yeah, I'll say one thing about that. There's a woman, I think it might be Shirley A, who I talked about earlier. She sent me this little medallion that said courage, strength, hope, or something on the front and the back that said the Serenity Prayer. And I've given away. So I tried to find out where she got them. I finally found a website where she got them. I ordered like 100 of them. And I've given away a lot. I don't know how many I've given away, but I give them to clients, I give them to friends, I give them to family members, I give them to my children. If you meet me, I might give you one. And it's something so small, right? People put it on a necklace, or people just carry it around with them, or people lose it. I don't know, but just in giving something that small costs $3. I don't know, and just giving something like that to a random newcomer at a meeting, or somebody shares something, it just touches me, and I say, you need to have this. And I carry one on my own on my keychain all the time, so I always have one, and then I replace one on my keychain. So to me, the Serenity Prayer, I never heard it. Being Jewish, I don't know, we just don't say that prayer, I guess. I don't know. I've never heard it before I walked into the rooms, and I have a poster of it. I have a sign in my house about it. It's, to me, the most simple prayer. It's such a powerful prayer. And I think everybody gets it, no matter who you are. Like, the courage, the wisdom, and just, it's such a hard place to come from when it's stuck. So to me, we'll do the Serenity Prayer. The long answer. So God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Keep coming back. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
There was a man put his hand by the side of his mouth, and he wanted to scream, but the sound never came out. So he reached for the bottle to wash the pain away, 'cause what he wanted so badly was us to live a different way. And all of his problems and all of his pain filled up the puddle and rose with the rain. His ship kept on sinking to the bottom of the lake. For certain that he was just a fake, just a fake. Was a man put his hand by the side of his mouth, and he wanted to share, but only lies ever came out. So he reached for the needle to numb the pain inside. And the truth that he yearned for shriveled up and died. And all of his problems, all of his pain filled up the puddle, rose with the rain. The ship kept on sinking to the bottom of the lake. For certain he was just a fake, just a side of his mouth as he read from the book, only truth spilled out. So he reached for a power to help him through the night. Cause what lives in the darkness dies in the light. Yeah, what lives in the darkness dies in